Hi folks, Jerry here, Dusty Sparks Garden Art Emporium. Today I'm making a bunch of stump tables. The raw material for these tables came from the two maple trees, sugar maple trees, in my front yard of my childhood home. I climbed these trees as a child. These trees are a century old. And when the township widened the road in front of my house, they moved the electrical lines a number of feet back, so far back in fact that when it rained the trees would buzz. This was killing the trees. So I needed to take the trees down before they hurt the house. They were getting sick, and I didn't want to turn something that beautiful into firewood. So I called a couple of arborists and had them take the trees down and told them, don't take any of the wood, just leave it where it is. Over the course of the next year or so, I cut it up, left it to dry, left it to spalt, got some beautiful colors out of it. Some of it I left too long and it's gone punky, but I'm prepared to work with that. Over the past 10 years I've been turning this material into some beautiful furniture. End tables, side tables, coffee tables, hall bench. And originally I started working with the smaller pieces. These are easy enough to work with. Planing them, I bought myself a 13-inch planer, and $300, not a bad deal. I was able to plane these things and turn them into some really nice pieces of furniture. But the larger pieces, anything that's greater than 13 inches in diameter, I couldn't work with. So I set them aside. Then I moved. When I moved, my house went from 2,400 square feet to 800 square feet. My workshop space went from 1,000 square feet down to 160. No place to store, no garage. So 2/3 of my stuff that I'd collected over the past 50 years didn't make it. These pieces of maple, they made it. I've been in my new place for a little over a year, and I've finally got my life to a point where things are stabilized. I've got a new shop up working, and I'm able to think about how I can turn these rough cut stumps into finished pieces. Some of the slabs are 20, 22, 24 inches in diameter. How can I pass these through a 13-inch planer? I can't. The planer that I would need would be about $6,000, and I have no place to put it. So what am I going to do with a ridiculously small space in order to get these pieces planed? So I came up with a really cool tool. I'll show you. Alright, we're in the workshop. Got on the work clothes. So I've seen some folks making a mill for cutting boards out of raw pieces of fallen log, and it occurred to me I could do something similar for milling lumber. So I've got myself a router with a flat bit, and made a rail system for it to sit on. So there it is. So this rail system is made out of, it's just welded up scrap, a couple of bed rails, drill the appropriate holes to mount the router to it, and then made this table out of a pallet, and added a couple of 2x6s to the ends. As long as the pallet is flat and the 2x6s are parallel to the top of the table, then this will slide up and down, left and right, wherever I need to go over the top of a piece of wood. If the piece of wood is flat on the bottom, then and it's heavy enough, I can just set it on the table. If it's not flat, or it's not heavy enough and it might move, I'll put a couple of these through the slats into the wood. I mill the top first. That way the bottom has the screw holes in it. Now there is a certain amount of adjustment in the router. If I can't adjust it down far enough, then I will put the piece of wood on a couple of stands, just to bring it up a little so that I can continue to mill. There are some problems with this. Of course, you can't hog off a half an inch or an inch at a time. If you're doing punky wood, that's easier to mill than hard maple. If you're milling through a knot hole, that's going to be a problem. So you have to be careful to only take off a small amount of material at a time, otherwise you'll end up breaking or throwing bits. So why don't we mill a piece and I'll show you how it works. Now this piece still has a bit of a divot right along here where the original chainsaw marks were. I could go down a little more and flatten this all out, make it look nice and smooth, but since I plan to put a deep pour epoxy resin on here, that's going to fill that in, and it'll be all nice and glass smooth, and it'll nicely show off that feature. So now we do a little bit of sanding and finish it off. And there it is, a lovely, beautiful flat piece of wood with a bit of character still in it. Bottom edge you can see along here and here. There are a number of cracks in the wood. These need to be filled with something. If I fill this from the top with a deep pour epoxy, the deep pour epoxy will just seep right out there. It takes up to 3 days for magic resin epoxy to set up, so it can potentially all seep out the bottom unless those spots are filled. Let me show you what I use. This stuff is wonderful, but it only comes in a 90 milliliter tube, and if I'm working on a piece that has loads and loads of cracks, deep, wide cracks, I need something more. So that's when I use this stuff. It's the same as this, just in a much bigger tube. Just rub the stuff right into the cracks, anywhere that you think that the material might run out. Rub it on. It takes about 7 days to dry fully. It'll be tack dry in about 24 hours, but if you're going to be putting epoxy resin on top of it from the other side, you want to make sure that you've got this sealed and nothing's going to run out. I'm going to knock the bark off of this one, and then we'll set it aside and let it dry. This piece is ready to be set aside for a few days, and once the glue has dried, then I will show you how I put the resin finish on the top in the next video.